on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. Yeah, put an extra letter in there, Android. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Joining me now is the one, the only, David Morassutti of Sportsnet, and writer extraordinaire, NHL, PA, CFL, PA, and every other letter in the alphabet, if you can figure out which letters. How are you doing today?
You know what? It's been busy. It's been busy with everything going on. And then the one thing we've been kind of waiting for has been crickets. Well, not crickets, but
worse than crickets.
At this rate.
Well, you know, it's obviously something that, you know, we're going to have to wait on. Well, let's get right in on it. I'll bring up the commissioner's letter and I'll read it verbatim, and I'll stop at certain times because we can talk about each point that he raises and have a little commentary on it. All right. So CFL fans, we know you're looking forward to a CFL season that starts on time and includes a full schedule of games. To get there, we need a collective agreement with our players, one that creates a new and positive partnership. Today, we presented an offer to the CFLPA that will meet this goal. We have communicated this offer directly to the players this afternoon. We want to share this information with you as well. First of all, and you can initiate whatever when I pause whatever other question you want to raise. I'll start by saying, is this really the way to negotiate with the players?
This is. I'm not. Yeah, I'm never a fan of when things like this get out, right? Like when it gets leaked. But then when you openly try to appeal to basically to the delegation or to the people who are supporting you, which are the fans,
right?
And you're trying to basically turn the fan. Now look, I don't think the full goal is to turn the players away from the fans or turn the fans away from the players. I do think that this is the CFL trying to let the fans know, hey, we put this offer out here. You're going to kind of go through all the different parts of it, but they're basically it's a PR move. It's as simple as that. I never like when the fans are being the ones that are being pulled, but I also believe fans are becoming a lot more wiser to a lot of these types of strategies. Let's call them.
Can I take the devil's advocate?
Sure.
Because I kind of agree with you a little bit, and I'll expand on that. But first, the CFL is frustrated with talking to the players. They're not sure the players are in a good place in regards to having a communication. The players may be by the owners and the commission. Well, and the commissioner represents the owners. The owners have suffered severe losses, income next to nothing compared to, you know, when you factor in the pandemic. There's a restart required by the teams that, you know, that they started last year that they need to continue. There are costs that didn't stop, and unfortunately, it puts the ownership and the speaker for the ownership. Remember, Randy Ambrosie is not the guy that's making the decision here. He is just the guy who's handling the group and what they want, and the group being the owners. So he's speaking on behalf of what he believes the owners want. And it's, you know, as far as this being a Randy Ambrosie move, maybe you can, you know, lay it at his door. Maybe you can. I'm just not sure you can. I think, you know, a lot of what commissioners do is what the owners want. So the owners want, I think the owners want the fans to know what they're offering, what they are making available to the players. And now they're going to wait for the fans' reaction along with the players' reaction to what they think will be the fans' reaction. And then, most importantly, the reaction of the rest of the players that the CFLPA represents. Now, from my perspective, I don't like this kind of stuff either. I agree with you. I'm going to assume that they're backed into a corner. The league is backed into a corner where they feel it's necessary to have a conversation directly with the fans to say, look, we got something out there. This is what we've got. All right. So you have you want to say something else? Point? Or
But
do I continue reading?
so yeah, continue reading because I'll interject at one
Yeah.
point.
Okay. So, dear CFL players, this document summarizes the CFL's offer that was presented to the union today for your consideration. It's designed to build a true partnership with you, our talented, hardworking, community-minded CFL players. It increases total player compensation by more than $24 million over the term of the agreement, plus an opportunity to share in revenue increases as we successfully work together to grow the league. All right. So I'll stop there because that's a conversation. So 24 million over the, if I remember correctly, it's okay. Here it is. It's a 7-year term. So annually, it's 3.5 million a year, I guess, if my math is almost 3.5, right?
Yeah, and
A year, right? On average, right? It's like we're talking AAV, right? On average, it's 3.1 million for the league divided by 9, right?
mhm.
Because they're talking. I'm assuming they're talking about in total all the teams, right? So nine times 4 is 36. So they're offering an increase of 400 grand per team on average,
I would say you're roughly in the right
right?
ballpark
A
there.
little more, a smidge more. It would be plus 100,000,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So
I'm just doing the math in my head, and
good,
that sounds about right.
right? So basically, divided by a lot of players, it sounds, the number is big standing by itself, but when you divide it proportionally to each individual player, I guess would you call it a lot? I wouldn't call it a lot.
No, it's like we're talking about over a 7-year term, as you said, $24 million. Like that's a league. That's right. That's total player compensation. $24 million. I mean, look, 24 million on top of what is already there. I get that, but it's
Good.
not a lot. It's not
No, I'm glad you said that because
yeah,
they're not asking the players to take less money. Let's, under
yeah.
circumstances where the income is a lot less, they're not asking the players to take less money. So I'm saying in a positive sense, they're offering more money. Are they offering enough money? We can both agree that that's, it's not a lot of money when you divide it. It doesn't end up being much per player,
Hmm.
but it's more than they were getting before. And and the next point, I guess it says plus an opportunity to share in revenue increases. So what's the share of the revenue
Yeah. Or
increases?
it says an opportunity to share,
Right.
right? An
So
opportunity meaning we'll share if you come to the terms that we want
what
you
is
to
it?
accept. What are the terms of that? And it's like plus an opportunity to share in revenue increases as we successfully work together to grow the league. So it's almost like you want a piece of the pie, you're gonna have to help us do it, which is fine. I have no problem with that.
I don't think the players have a problem.
No, the players don't have a problem with that. But let's be real here. we're talking about, when it comes to revenue sharing, you have to be also willing to grow the revenue and and properly. I think this is the biggest stickler point in the negotiations right now is what percentage of the revenue, what's that amount to? Like it's too vague. That part right there is way too vague.
So for now, I'll say this. If this is to help clarify things and or to put the fans at the table, the bargaining table, the fans are going to raise their hand and say, I have questions. So it doesn't answer. Right now, it's created more questions than it's answered, right? So,
Yep.
because the number one answer for us is what is everybody saying that gives us a sense, and I'll put us in with the fans, right? That gives people outside of the league and outside of the CFLP what answers do we hear? What are we hearing that sounds like we're moving towards what should be an agreement? What should be an agreement from our perspective, sitting on the outside? What I will say is the important issue right now that they've raised so far is they're going to give them a little more money. They're offering to revenue share, but we don't know whether it's a 50-50 split or another number, right? We know it's not going to be more than a 50-50 split.
Like that's the thing, right? When you look at what like you have a basis based on what other leagues have done throughout the years. We already know through my experience covering the NHL's labor negotiations, there's a couple of issues when it comes to how that all pans out. One is the escrow that players have to pay out through revenue because with the salary cap increasing, the owners feel they have to get some of that money back, and revenue sharing. And like, here's the thing: like players can want to be a part of revenue sharing, but don't kid yourself. You think the CFL is just gonna be like, yeah, we'll give you half.
And there's nothing. Is there anything? Because the possibility implies, and I'm sorry, that's not the exact word the commissioner used, but when he says there's an opportunity for you to revenue share, what triggers that opportunity? I think is what you're getting at. Like, are you willing to give to give something up for that revenue sharing? And what is it that they'll have to give up? I mean, this is all fun to talk about. We're just speculating. You're just spitballing. And for the fans that are out there, join along with us and have some fun talking about this in the event that we don't have a season.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's really tough because, like, I've with this whole situation, I'm actually proud of the players that they're digging in right now. Like,
Shall we interrupt this part of the program for expanding on what you mean about digging in?
well, let's continue because we haven't gone through everything
Okay. All right.
yet.
So let's see. Okay, here's one. It protects jobs for Canadian players, the bedrock of the CFL. That's a no-brainer for the fans, right?
Why does that have? Why does that have to be included in the letter? And you know why it had to be included in the letter, based
For
off
the
our
fans, because
conversation
they're
last
sending
week.
it to the fans. This is
Yeah, it's
less about
addressed to CFL players, but the fans should have been included in that address.
Well, they are. The
Yeah.
reason that he's talking to the fans too. This is what we've done. So we're protecting your love of the Canadian players, right? Which to me is a no-brainer. The CFL has to do that. Now the CFLPA, how do they feel about protecting Canadian jobs? There's been, I'm not sure 100% how they feel about protecting Canadian jobs. Do you get a sense?
Yeah, it's just when he says it projects jobs for Canadian players, the bedrock of the CFL. Who's he speaking to, really? Right? Because that should not be, even a consideration, like to include in a statement like that. You shouldn't have to, as the commissioner of this Canadian Football League. You should not have to include in the letter that we are going to protect jobs for Canadian
Well,
players.
that's a reassurance to the fans who have made it very clear they want 3 downs and Canadian players in the game. So I'm sure 3 downs is going to end up down here somewhere, probably. No, just kidding. Um, it offers guaranteed contracts for the first time in our league's history.
Partially guaranteed contracts.
Thank you. So,
We've been asking for this for a long time.
so again, another question that raised: how does it partially
And who controls
guarantee
that?
contract? Right, and how does that work? I think I'm going to say this: it'll probably have something to do with American players who've been playing in Canada for more than 5 or 6 years. I suspect. That's a suspicion for me. I have no reason to say that other than just putting my ear to the ground.
Yeah, like when I think about like offering the guaranteed contracts, yeah, I don't think that a player that you're trying to get from the states should be a part of that. Maybe that's something that they need to say, oh, well, I'm not going to make the whole journey to come up to Canada only to get cut. I get that. Um, I think on some sort of level, there has to be something that protects the players in certain circumstances.
I think
Like
the
that.
next line I think the next line
Go
clarifies.
ahead.
I think these 2 are connected. This next line is connected to the last one. It recognizes the contribution of veteran Americans with a new opportunity to extend their careers with their team without restricting free agency in any way. So there's this is something the fans this is another thing the fans talked about, keeping players on rosters over a protracted period, not like Charleston Hughes, who's been on 5 teams in the last 5 years. You can't count Saskatchewan because this is his second time there. So
Yeah, that's like Saskatchewan B2.
absolutely. So this is good for the fans. This is a good thing for the fans, and I might add, I think it's a good thing for the players. I can't see players being against if they feel financially appreciated in the same location, not moving on to another team. And if the team's a little more motivated to keep them, I think is what the players would hope, right?
Yeah, but this is something we've talked about is how many teams go through so much turnover that you're just like, I don't know who this guy is. Like I have no, where did it like oh this guy moved to this team? Like it's hard to have like there's no league, there's no in my opinion there's no league or out there that has the turnover that the CFL does. I don't think I've seen that. You're gonna get turnover. You're gonna get changes. You're not gonna be able to keep the same team every year.
Yeah,
Like
but
Winnipeg is. Go ahead.
I was just going to interrupt you and say, but we heard a great point in regards to after the draft instead of 2 years, 4 years, because a player gets drafted and in 2 years they can be gone, and that doesn't help. When you have a young player, right? If they
Yeah,
could hang on to the younger players a little longer, build up their game, and benefit from it for a little while.
yeah. How many of these younger players feel like they have to make the decision earlier than they want to just leave the game because either they're not getting the opportunity or they can't make ends meet because they're not getting the opportunity. Like there has to be there has to be a balance. You have to find the balance. It's always tough, but that comes with running. There's a business side to it. I get that. There's also the business gets gets hurt by that thinking at times because there's still a personal connection to it. You're talking about fans who could care less about some of the business decisions because that's not what they cheer for. They cheer for their
Players,
team. They want to see their team at the best that it can be. What
games, yeah.
and being able to have some sort of, you know, understanding that the team is going to do its best to continue to move forward rather than, we can't, this guy's going, we have to find a new solution.
Yeah.
Instead of, what can we do to keep this guy and ensure that our team can remain competitive?
Here's a big reason why they're offering more money, where the more money, I think the biggest chunk is going to be there, and it's going to include 2 league minimum salary increases. That'll probably where a lot of the money will go when you think about it, because a lot of players get the league minimum because the league maximum, once somebody gets, like, there's, they have contracts out there, for a half a million, 6, 7, $800,000. One of those contracts is worth 12 times what the minimum salary is. So, there's going to be a lot of minimum salaries out there. So they're all going to increase. And that's by numbers, sheer numbers. I think that's going to be a lot of the increase that they're promising, the CFL is promising.
Yeah, I think when you look at this entire situation with minimum salary, I have a story. I was at a stag. For those who don't know what a stag is, it's a party for the groom before the wedding. Um, and so I actually talked with somebody who works at CIBC, someone, a friend of a friend, and he's like, "Hey, you cover the CFL? Are you written about the CFL? Haven't you?" Said, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I had a guy who said he was on the Toronto Argonauts come to my bank and talk about his finances." And he said when I found out he was an Argonaut, I thought, oh, this guy probably makes some decent money. And then he saw his salary, and he's just like, ooh. I said, okay, so this must have been a newer player, a player that's on a
Closer to the
minimum,
minimum.
closer to the minimum. When somebody, when other, I think this is what hurts the CFL, because when everybody else sees what the players make, they're like, and this is supposed to be a professional football league, and these players make peanuts when you consider what their job entails and what's expected of them.
I don't know if peanuts is the right word, but, there's no doubt that a lot of the fans earn more money than some of the players. That's how I'll frame it. And there aren't many leagues when it comes to sports, at least ones that consider themselves big league, where the fans earn more money than the players.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like
A segment of them, not all, but a segment of them.
a good, yeah. Like I guess the one thing that I always say is it kind of means that a lot of these CFL players are quite humble, right? It keeps you a bit more humble in terms of, I'm scratching clawing to make ends meet playing the game that I want to play, but it shouldn't have to be like that. We're talking about, players who don't want to have to go and find a second job so that they can support their family. They want to be able to support themselves playing professional football because that's what it is. That's what it's supposed to be.
But I like to say this: just because somebody gets a second job doesn't mean that they're not earning enough money. Because I know for a fact that firemen earn a pretty good wage, and a lot of them have second jobs, and they do it because they have time and energy to spare. And I think players do too in the CFL. They have time and
Well, yeah,
energy to spare.
when you have the off season, yeah, I can see where a player's just like, I can't just do nothing. I might as well make some money.
There is a
Consider,
bit of that.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not suggesting that, players don't work hard after the season's over. A lot of them go crazy. Their bodies are you know, that's what they're selling. They're selling their bodies, right? And they work on them all the time. But, it's like anything else, right? Doing the same thing all the time, it's carpal tunnel. So a change sometimes is as good as a rest. And have being a teacher or working in a bank or selling cars or whatever you decide as a player is a good, you know, second career while you're in the Canadian Football League. Saskatchewan, that team's notorious for giving jobs to players because there's places they can send them and the players can make a decent penny working for jobs that the CFL team recommends. So that's important. The idea of the second them working, you're right, is important. So it includes two increases for the minimum salary. That's in 7 years, right? So a little over average every 3 years, though they might give them a raise, right? Sounds like. This one is interesting. It provides certainty and stability with a 7-year term. That to me sounds more like something for the owners, but the word
And the league.
stability sounds good to the fans because that's something the fans haven't seen recently.
I think it's like we don't want to have to keep doing this every year. And look, you never want to have to revisit a CBA so quickly after you've just done a new one. But 7 years is a long time. And unless the players can go in and make changes, I ain't doing a 7 year CBA because things change within even 3 years.
Well, you're hoping to make a decision that maximizes the possibility for income. In other words, if you see an increase coming and you want to make sure that you take part in it, right? If things don't look good and you think they don't look good and they're offering something that's better than a decline, then you'll jump on it. But that's the decision process, right? And it has to happen as a group. The leadership and the CFLPA is going to make a decision, but they still have to go to the players with whatever, it's going to be, a vote. It's democratic. So that's important. So here are the details. 18.9 million in total guaranteed increases to the salary cap league wide.
All right.
Again, that's 7 years, right?
So here's where I want to interrupt on that one.
Go
So
ahead.
our good friends over at X's and Argos, I don't know if you've um,
Yep.
saw this tweet. So basically, yeah, 18.9 million totally guaranteed increases to salary cap league wide. And X's and Argos did a great job of kind of saying that they're misleading. They're putting in this number, but we're not actually seeing how this is working. So I'm going to read their explanation of this.
Okay.
After 6 years of increasing the cap by $100,000, most people would say the cap went up $600,000. It appears the league would say it increased $18.9 million for the cap. They're actually adding each increase, so 100,000 plus 200,000 plus 300,000 plus 4, 5, and 6, and then
Right.
multiply it by the 9 teams to give themselves the $18.9 million. So
Well,
it's not,
that's exactly what we said about dividing it between
yeah.
the teams, right? Now they're talking about dividing it between the years.
This is where I have the issue with this, right? It's like that's your idea. Like the if you're gonna say that your increase of total guaranteed increase, lay it out. Don't just say it because
Well,
then you can.
either way, it's 9 teams. It's 2 million, a little over 2 million per team in total guaranteed increases, right? 2 million total increases. It's 2 million for each team over 7 years.
So yeah, and now here's my counter argument to that. At least they are thinking about increasing because I can't remember the last
Exactly.
time I heard about the CFL saying, "Yeah, we're going to increase the salary cap." I will give them that, but it's the idea of now all of a sudden you project that you can do, and your guarantee. How
I
much
got
of the guarantee is at 18.9? What's conditional about that as well?
I'm going to save it for the end.
Yeah.
I got a question. Uh, I just realized something. You just raised an issue in my head. Okay, so there will be 5.94 million in guaranteed compensation paid for community outreach and promotional appearances league wide. So
Okay.
that this is the money when players go out on behalf of teams and they go into the community, they do the outreach stuff, they do, in schools and talk about, you know, um, violence against women. They talk about bullying, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. They get paid for that when they show up, when they organize that kind of stuff. So there's going to be that. That's something. Now we have a figure that we're looking at, and now we ask ourselves: is that enough? For nine teams, so that's about 600 grand a team. Is that over the 7 years? Um, again, we're left to believe that because this is all based on a 7-year contract, right? We won't, but we don't disagree with any kind of support for the players who go out into the community to help uh, make the communities better and be a part of it.
Yeah, that's I'm glad that they're thinking okay. Here, so here's the thing, players. There are players that will do it because they generally love to do the community outreach. They understand the benefit of it. There's going to be something that say, well, my time is also worth something. You
Right.
know,
And it is.
I do like I do like the idea of paying the players for it. I'm just wondering, how does that equate per appearance? How much is an appearance worth to the CFL? Because we all know how important it is to get out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Clubs would be permitted to re-sign their veterans to partially guaranteed contracts. That would be a first in the Canadian Football League. That's something the players want. Is it enough? Because the problem with what we're reading right now is it's not just a question of what they're offering and how great it is and how maybe it relates to what the players wanted. It's to what extent matters too. But again, that's a move forward by the league, right? It's a new thing. So that offers an opportunity for negotiation. So I say that's a good thing for the players. From a fan's perspective, I know that they've been fighting for that and they're being offered it. Now, they're just saying they're willing to talk about it, right? At what rate that is. That's a good thing.
Hmm. I just want to know how will I mean I want to know the specifics. How will the partially guaranteed contracts work? Is it a percentage? Is it a, is do the player and the team have to agree on a certain number? Does it count towards the cap if a player gets like I want to know how this all lines up because the whole point of that obviously is to ensure that the veteran player sticks around longer.
Absolutely. Um, a club would be allowed to choose one American player, non quarterback, who has been in the league for at least 4 years or has played for the same team for at least 3 years, who would be considered a nationalized American. What did I tell you a while back? And I spoke about this a couple. This is something that I don't know about fans, but I like this idea where an American who's dedicated to playing in the Canadian Football League gets an opportunity to have an inside track to a job. A. B. Especially as is the case for many of them that decide to stay here, they make a contribution to minor football. Many of them, even after they stop playing, but the ones that do it while they're playing as well. This really allows a player to set up roots. So, this to me, on a personal level, I don't know how it fits in the CFLPA and how the PA feels about it, how the teams feel about it as a group, but I know there's individual players that will really like this idea. Whether it's en masse, I don't know. But I know individual players who like living in Canada and have intentions of staying in Canada. This offers them an opportunity that otherwise they wouldn't have before now.
I think that's the frustration with a lot of the American players right now is that there are a lot of American players who have dedicated a lot to the league. And I hate to say it, in some cases more than the Canadian players, right?
I
And they
don't
should be
disagree.
rewarded for that.
Now,
I
this
have
is
no
just
problem with
one
that.
player, right? One player per roster. So this is 9 players in the league.
Yeah, right? But there are players who really, really do deserve it. I will say. Like Charleston Hughes would be an example. He's given a lot to the CFL. Who's maybe Charleston Hughes is one. Who's another one we can do? Like both. Well, no, I'm trying to think of another American that's really like almost like when what's his name was here, like a Ricky Ray. I imagine if Ricky Ray counted as a national player. That would
Mm-hmm.
have meant a lot for a lot of teams. There are a lot. I mean, Ricky Ray is one. I'm trying to think of like another one that would really work. Willie Jefferson. Willie Jefferson will be going on his third year with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He
Mm-hmm.
would count as a national.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone like that who's made a real impact on the CFL.
On
Deserve,
the team in the city as
yeah,
well, I think is what
exactly.
you're getting at.
I think that I don't mind that one. I
Yeah,
don't mind.
I can see starting with one. I like the idea of there should be more than one on each team, but I'm going to let the
Or maybe
experts handle
or
this
maybe
conversation.
one on each side of the ball.
That's
One on
one way
offense,
to
one on
that's one
defense.
way to partition it, I guess. Oh, here we go. Each roster would have a minimum of 7 national starters. This would include at least 6 Canadian players. The 7th starter could be either the nationalized American or an additional Canadian.
Well, we already know how teams might go with that one, but at least the incentive, the options there, at least. Sorry. Yeah, the options there at least.
Yeah. The roster would also include 3 quarterbacks of any nationality, 19 Americans, and 2 global players. So that's something, if we remember, I think we lost a Canadian for a global. A starting Canadian quarterback could count as a national Canadian. That,
That's
that if you're a BC, you're going, okay, we like that idea.
we got two of
And
them.
in Calgary.
Yep.
These roster changes could kick in as of 2023.
So not this season, but the following season.
Right. Well, they signed the deal, play this season, ready to go next year.
Yeah.
Gives the teams they can hit the ground running, not hit the ground. Right.
Exactly.
The minimum salary would increase 70,000 in 2023, 75,000 in 2027. So there's there you go.
So I think right now the minimum is 65,000, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. Or maybe it's less. Let me see here. Uh,
I thought it was high 50s.
yeah, 65,000.
65.
It's 65.
Okay. And
So it's a $5,000 increase each year, which
so
I mean, look, 75,000 at least is better than what they were
it's
getting.
it's a minimum. It's a minimum salary. Now,
And
again,
it's,
that just forces teams to spend less money at the top so they have the money at the bottom,
yeah,
right?
that. I think players are gonna like. Well, it's good that those coming in are getting that money, but it's also like you're also squeezing out what the maximum for. Yeah, I get where you're
Do
going with
you
that.
need do you need stars? That's the question, right?
Yeah,
It's yin and yang. There's no other way around it. What are you going to do? An updated code of conduct that applies to members of the CFL community, including fans, instead of just players. Whoa.
I think there were players who were really upset with what happened with that Argo game with the Ticats, and
Hmm.
I think the CFL realized that we kind of need to rein in the fans a little bit. I think like the fans, that situation was just. I mean, security botched it, but it should never have gone to that point.
I couldn't agree more. There's more that happened that hasn't been broadcasted. I have some information that I'm curious about, but for another day. A seat for your union on the board of CFL Ventures, the commercial arm of the league, will allow us to work together on marketing our league and building our business. So um, that means a direct member to help in making decisions. So it's like the league rules. Now this is the league business. You know how players take part in the rules, the rule changes, rule considerations. Now they're saying in ventures, which is the business side of the Canadian Football League, a player can be brought in there. I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good move, and I think that's really important because maybe with a player being there and maybe they hear what's going on, I think a little more openness wouldn't hurt the Canadian Football League.
My question is, why isn't that happening now?
Well, my answer is I'm not going to worry about why it isn't happening now because I don't think it's a good idea that it isn't happening, and I'm glad to hear it's going to change.
Okay.
An agreement based on this offer helps everyone across the CFL. Fans can expect improved roster continuity, something that has been a top priority for them for years. Our clubs will be able to consistently market their star players with more confidence they could re-sign. There's not a truer statement in this thing so far that is an answer, not just an answer to a question, creating a question. This is simple. I have no comment on that other than to say that absolutely.
Yeah, that should be the league's. You can't. A league cannot thrive without the star players being front and center.
And this league needs that. It is a hallmark of the Canadian Football League. But this is about you and your career, first and foremost. That's why this offer protects roster spots for our great Canadian players who mean so much to the CFL. It celebrates the veteran American players who have built careers here and includes increases for all players, including players paid the league minimum. Okay. So mutual respect, you know, we really consider all of you want you to know now this is a promise. How it follows through and how the players feel it'll be followed through on. What guarantees will the players get that this is not just talk, right?
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. That's important. Okay, this is a win-win offer. It creates a stronger partnership so we can work together to further improve our game and build our business. And it comes at a critical time. No kidding. That's my interjection. Our league, our clubs, and especially our players have been through so much during this pandemic. Another comment by Frank. No kidding again. We turned the corner in 2021 working together to get back on the field. Now we can have an opportunity to accelerate towards a brighter future. I couldn't agree more with that statement. That's a pretty easy I agree with. How about you?
Oh, it's very much. The message is right. The question is, can the CFL deliver?
And what will that delivery look like?
Exactly. Like,
Let's see.
are they committed? Are they committed to following through on changing the business model that has been needed change for a very long time?
Absolutely. So, final words by Randy Ambrosie, the commissioner of the Canadian Football League. Let's seize that opportunity together. Can't disagree that they need to work together
Yeah.
on this. And, so to review, what isn't included in here, and there's no mention of, what happens financially to the players, the owners, and all agreements that they make today if the league increases by a team?
Ooh. Yeah, I didn't even think
I
of
told
that.
you I had something for you. What happens then?
Oh yeah, that's got to be adjusted.
So I can't see the players not seeing that one coming.
Oh no, the players have definitely
this,
brought that up, and I think the players, I guarantee that's probably a stickler right now. Is all right, this is all fine and dandy, but when we add in a 10th team, how does that change the piece of the pie?
yeah, like does it get divided? Does the pie stay the same and then be divided by 10?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or does it get divided by 9 and then add another share, which I think is the logical thing. And I think the owners would only be, I would expect that the owners would be straight up with that. Where, to me, all that should happen there is the player should say, so per player, per whatever, doesn't change if a 10th team comes in. In other words, that 10th team does not share in the money we just talked about. A new share of everything comes through with that team. In other words, one player per team, X amount per team, and then this team, they would have to increase the salary cap. Well, no, they wouldn't have to increase the salary cap. They would basically, the team would come in with that. But all these other things that they're promising, right? You know what I mean? We want to make sure, and I know the players will want to make sure that what they're being offered considers financially on an equal basis every team, whether there's 9 or 10. And usually leagues players don't benefit from expansion fees.
This is also true.
Right. So that I don't know if they would have, on the players' side, I don't think they would have a very strong leg to stand on to say, well, what's our share of the expansion fee?
Mm-hmm.
So, but everything else should be on the table for them. So that'll be interesting. And of course, if you get a 10th team, the hope is that it's a team that makes more money than it loses, which will be a revenue increase, right? That'll be more on the ledger of the ability for the players to share, right? And you hope that it's a team that has some sort of success, and I'm trying to remember if the players get a share of the TV money.
Well, that's part of the
That's something I
revenue.
didn't hear discussed here, because
So the revenue sharing is based on revenue coming from the TV deal and other business ventures.
right.
But that's, I think that's what the players have the issue with.
Yeah, we're going to find out, because there's some gray areas here that we anticipated. Now, before the show started, the first reaction by the players to the public letter from the commissioner of the Canadian Football League is they want to get together with all the fans, and they're saying, we're welcoming you. Well, you mentioned it, so describe what the players' reaction, I'll call it the players' reaction, is.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, I should say, just to make this more specific, the players are being invited to go to Hamilton, to Tim Hortons Field, in a show of solidarity. So it's clear that the players are digging in right now. The players are not happy with what's been going on with these negotiations. Um, it's looking like, okay, who's going to be the? We always wonder who's going to be the first to kind of not crack, but who's going to be the first to move the needle that needs to be moved. Who's going to break down the wall that's there? I think the players realize for far too long they feel like that they haven't been involved in what the CFL's future and everything like that. But it's and I know what, if you look at the reaction online from the fans, you are seeing a lot of "I'm with the CFLPA." Disappointed that the CFL isn't happening right now, but a lot of fans are showing their support for the players. What does that make? And for me, what that says is, as much as fans are fans of the teams, they want the players to know that they have that they're important to this league, to the success of this league, and the fans, I think, I think in a good way, need to show the CFL that they need to do a lot more of that.
So I guess you're suggesting that the fans are on the CFLPA's side because they are more directly connected to the players than they are to the teams. It is the byproduct of the relationship between the players and the fans that has been fostered over the years and supported by the Canadian Football League and their teams. So I think it's only a natural reaction that the players would get the support of the fans that spend a lot of time with the players, looking for them, talking to them because there's easy access to the players. Um, but I would say that there's always, when these things happen, I've noticed past agreements and past conversations and past disagreements. I've seen there are fans who don't take the side of the players. Um, but again, that has to do with everyone has an opinion. Not everyone's opinion is right, but not everyone's opinion is wrong either. You can't assume either. What I can say is this, from my perspective, I like the players, always have liked the way they behave, have liked how they interact with the fans. I truly enjoy how they spend time with younger fans who literally adore them, and the players handle those children and fans in a really professional and decent way. And also, the players have shown, and there are excellent examples of players. If I start with one, I'm going to feel bad because I'm going to miss the other 27 that I should be saying. But to put it bluntly, they do go into the community, do show that they care, they share their love and consideration and decency with the community, and for that they should be applauded. And so I don't blame the fans for siding with them. Those fans siding with them because they see how good those people are, and
Mhm.
players are people.
No, for sure. I've kind of made it known too that you're what makes sport like look like in Canada, especially when you have such a hard time getting the recognition of your league because of the other, let's face it, on a lot of these markets, you're going up against the NHL, you're going up against in Toronto, you're going up against a flood of teams in Montreal, you're going up against a couple in Vancouver, you're going up against a couple. You're going up against differing operations in terms of how of the other leagues operate. And so you have to find a way to really push. Look, I've always said you don't have to change the identity of the CFL, but you definitely need to change the message and the
And the
way that
perception.
the league is perceived, the perception. Thank you. The perception of this league has needed to change for a really long time. I've been I know, Frank, you've been watching this league a lot longer than me. I've been since 2003, and I can say that there hasn't been a drastic enough change in terms of modernizing the experience for the younger fan and for the way and the change in the way that sports around North America are consumed. It's not the same as it was 15, 20 years ago. It's not. And until the league recognizes that, they're going to see the same issues of trying to connect to young fans. I think they recognize it, but I don't know if they have the right people to give them the direction that they need to go.
Well, I'm going to um, put my passion not on pause, but I'm very passionate when it comes to sports. And I'm very passionate when it comes to my community and how my community reacts and or is forced to react, or the reaction of my community when it comes to sports. When it comes to the Canadian Football League, for me, it's about this league and the community that it serves, and how it is a great opportunity for an affordable product to be presented to the fans and communities in this country so that they can see big league sports and see some of the finest athletes that the sport has to offer at a reasonable price. That's something that's the main thing that I take from the Canadian Football League, and I worry because the affordability is also another one of those things that you talk about perception, right? So, I look at it as a positive. Negative people look at it as a negative, and I just want to see the league move on, get stronger, and I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't think fans mind if the league gets so good they fill their stadiums and then maybe even have the nerve to raise ticket prices. If the game's around and the value already is good and they increase the value of the game to people, a reasonable raising in prices and a better deal for the players in the future, and the owners, of course, who, you know, these folks do this not for charity, but they do it as a business to ensure that it continues to exist. And I think that's the key thing that we're looking for in the Canadian Football League, an agreement that helps this league continue.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, all right. Well, last word to you, and then we'll bid adieu.
I just want you know what, I think fans should be patient. Be patient and let this thing play out the way it needs to, because there's issues that the league and the players need to figure out, and I think they really need to hammer it out and let them do it. Be patient. The season was supposed to start early. Like, just be patient. They'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, he's David Morassutti. I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, Aaron Live Mondays at 9 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.